questions that I think I would like to ask a couple of our chiefs of staff who are sitting at the table at the moment is when you are trying to figure out how to interact with the outside groups, people, organizations, can you give just an example or two of things that are constructive that you have seen and things that are not constructive that you have seen?
Sure. I'd say this, Mr. Polis made the point about how there's the problem with lobbyists because they're the experts on any given issue, and so they're the ones who come in and kind of can convince you, whichever way they want you to go, because the members of Congress don't have time, and even their staff don't have time to fully know the issues as well as the lobbyists who spend all their time on it. And a little more to that point as well. It's not just a matter of being a generalist and never getting a chance to become an expert on an issue, but also that things are happening so quickly that the minute you figure out, okay, here's what I think about healthcare, or some smaller issue, the minute you figure it out, you're voting on the bill, and then I say you're moving on to something else. So there's often not time to delve deeper, even if you would like to. So I think some of the things that are helpful are having relationships with activists, and that's specific individuals and of course groups, and meeting with folks and talking to them on the phone. Of course, email activism is important, and knowing what's going on, what kind of support there is, and seeing it publicly in the paper and online is great, but I think getting information from individuals is the most helpful thing, and you can ask questions and have conversations. And I would say, the thing that sometimes seems maybe more difficult, but I can also understand some of the incentives from the outside on it, is having negative relationships or confrontation over issues that may be difficult politically, or because of how it affects your district as opposed to nationwide, and trying to navigate those things with folks who are very focused on their issue and maybe not as open to seeing the issues that the specific member of Congress is dealing with. So I guess, the sum of that is that having a conversation is important and is the most helpful thing, rather than, feeling pushed around and, both sides feeling kind of pushed and unable to communicate effectively.
Yeah, I'll second the fact that establishing trust is very important. We need to feel like we can turn to the outside and we're not going to get burned when we communicate that. Well, if you look at the healthcare fight, I think one of the things that was most helpful with that was the tireless work that everyone did explaining the process to the public. That was something that was extremely constructive, that as we've been talking about, our resources are stretched. We couldn't do that without the outside groups. And highlighting the members who were active and showcasing them to the public and explaining who were the players, that's something that the larger media outlets wouldn't have covered the way that the Netroots did for us. And that made people more engaged and invested in the process. I think another thing that was helpful was when you all got people to make commitments publicly, because you can live internally, but there's no guarantee that the member's going to stick to their word. When you make a commitment to the public, that's huge, and that was very helpful to us. And I forget, I'm sorry which blog it was, I think it might have been Open Left that did it publicly, but the Senate, and that's very helpful to the House. Because another thing that people don't realize is that the House and Senate staff don't work together all that much. We often are in the dark about what the Senate is doing, apart from not passing our legislation.
That's not a whole lot different from us being in the dark about what the Senate's going to do. Right?
Yeah. I'm going to beat on the Senate today. And then I get another thing that's helpful. We love praise. We like it when you write nice things about us, and not just because we want our ego stroked. It's really motivating for the staff. It's hugely motivating for the members. So on the opposite side, it's not constructive when we feel like we're being berated, when we're really trying as hard as we can. Was the healthcare bill that we passed as progressive as we wanted it to be? Certainly, in my opinion, it wasn't. But I think that there was a lot of animosity towards us for passing it in general. People wanted the bill killed. But you have to remember that was an important step forward, and that this is going to be incremental, and we need your support to keep fighting, to keep moving forward. Because we had as big of a debate as we did on the public option, that's what's going to allow us to now talk about Medicare for all, et cetera, going forward.
Thank you. So one of the themes that I think is coming through in all of what's being said is the idea that we might want to think about the progressive members and their staffs as part of our team and treat them in that way as allies, rather than thinking of them only as targets, which is how a lot of the way the interaction with Congress is typically framed is as targets. The title of this panel, The Tip of the Spear, I had a very funny conversation actually with Congressman Perriello when I invited him to be on the panel. He was like, what does that mean? He used slightly more colorful language, as I recall. But the point that I was trying to make is that we, as the progressive movement, have a tremendous amount of mass and an ability to impact things. We are, as it were, a large piece of wood. But we're going to be a whole lot more effective in moving policy if we work in conjunction with our allies in Congress, who are much smaller and have a lot less mass than we do, but have the ability, I hate to use violent metaphors, I apologize, to cut through things, particularly with our weight behind them.